Colombia, President Gustavo Petro launched the Government with Popular Neighborhoods initiative. The United Nations denounces Israel's denial of access to Rafah crossing point in Gaza. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin was sworn in to officially take office as head of state for the next 6 years. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Monday, President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, opened the initiative known as the Government with Popular Neighborhoods. The plan, which aims at assessing, monitoring and accelerating the implementation of programs, projects and investments, was opened at the Ensueño Theater in the Bolivar city, Bogota, alongside several members of his executive team, including Vice President Francia Márquez. President Petro announced an array of measures to benefit impoverished communities and denounce acts of corruption in his administration.
Officials fell into the temptation to save their penalties by accusing. And some very famous lawyers for their intellectual line took the matter into their hands. And some are extorting officials under the thesis constructed journalistically by the usual lady that the president bribed with public money congresspersons to approve the reform. And that is false, and it has to do with a coup strategy.
In Venezuela, the Attorney General Tarek William Saab on Tuesday offered details of the progress made in the investigations regarding the PDVSA crypto case. During a press conference, William Saab pointed out that the public ministry is constantly advancing in the fight against corruption. Meanwhile, the official denounced that the former Minister of Oil, Tarek El Aissami, had a phantom payroll with which he allegedly financed an extortive media structure with public money. In this sense, the public prosecutor informed that around 290 people have been prosecuted, 76 of them were sentenced for the corruption scheme.
Later appeared one after another in different companies in the oil belt, as well as in different management of PDVSA. After almost 7 years of this investigation, we have managed to process 32 corruption plots linked to the oil industry, including PDVSA crypto plot. In all these 32 plots, so we have judicialized 290 people. That number should not be forgotten, only referring to the fight against oil corruption. 76 have already been convicted. Among those prosecuted, including apart from the former Orinoco oil belt, Chief Pedro León, and 4 former presidents of PDVSA. This public service, our officers under our leadership have consolidated in an unquestionable way a work a reality, a vocation of service that is unique in the Western Hemisphere and within this important line of actions. The fight against common crime in all its forms, organized crime in all its forms, from structured organized crime groups to the major drug mafias.
In Venezuela, new voices have joined the national rejection of the coercive measures that Joe Biden's regime is applying to the South American nation, while billboards condemning the United States' aggression have been erected in different parts of Caracas. Our correspondent Roberto Hugo Presa has more details.
The youth raised their voice of condemnation against the blockade imposed by the United States on Venezuela. These young people are clear that they must join a citizens' campaign to shout out the US government that the sanctions are illegal, unhuman, and criminal.
La juventud rechaza las sanciones impuestas.
The youth rejects the sanctions imposed by imperialism, by the United States, but beyond rejecting, here they are, these young people. Many young people left, but they decided to stay. We decided to stay and fight for our homeland. Despite the blockade, here are these young people who believe in the future, who believe in Venezuela, who believe in the revolution, but who also move forward so that every day youth policies are better.
They believe that all media resources should be used to raise awareness nationally and internationally and to spread a message of repudiation.
¿Cómo ponemos los medios alternativos?
The alternative media that we achieved with President Chavez, that is to say, the alternative radio stations. The alternative media, how do we use all these tools to attack these measures? How do we use the networks, how we viralize all the consequences? The whole issue of the victims, just like the issue of Palestine, which has gone viral everywhere because of the bombings. Well, our people are also receiving bombs. A hospital that is not receiving supplies because of the blockade is a bomb that falls on the hospital.
Other sectors also joined the rejection of the United States. The inhabitants of Kosher Parish took to the street massively to demonstrate and send a message to President Joe Biden.
Today we take to the streets, as always united, full of love, of hope, because we believe in the homeland and we are sure that the sanctions will never defeat us. They have had 1,000 sanctions against Venezuela, and we will always take to the streets to say that we are free, we are sovereign, and that our homeland defends itself.
I ask for the sanction to be removed so that we can have a country like a Venezuelan deserve. Beyond that, we have been fighting against the empire for a long time. Since we come from the belly of our mother, I hope that Biden and the gringos understand this. Gringo, go home.
In various parts of the country, billboards have been erected with messages condemning the opposition leaders who promoted the sanctions. It is a citizens' campaign of repudiation in which they also warn that they will not be able to defeat the peoples of Venezuela. The messages are signed by the Venezuelan people.
Roberto Hugo Presta, teleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
During an exclusive interview for a multi-platform teleSUR, Argentine journalist and writer Estela Caloni affirmed that the government's decision to censor teleSUR's signal on open digital television is part of the political persecution that the country is going through.
This is a clearly political decision as a result of the political persecution that we are living in these moments. It was kind of foreseeable that teleSUR was bothering them infinitely, because this is a country where they are not allowing the channels to publish anything of international politics. Here, nothing is known, and the only thing that many of us could see was our own production. Of course, we journalists have other sources, but teleSUR was very important to us and to all of Latin America. We know this. Besides, Argentina is a partner of teleSUR from the beginning.
Estela Caloni also stated that the government is attacking the media, starting with the Telam news agency, whose headquarters have been closed indefinitely.
Communication has been persecuted from the beginning. Also, in Macri's government, the first thing they did was to end the whole new project of the audiovisual media law, so important for the country, because it was a democratizing law by essence. So the first thing he does is to attack the public media, to promise that the public media was going to disappear. Media like public television, radio, and the news agency Telam, which also, similar to this issue with teleSUR, they have decided to close all internal correspondence.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva sent to Congress a draft legislative decree establishing a public calamity in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The death toll after heavy rains in the state rose to 90. Authorities also reported several people missing and considerable damage to infrastructure. The executive wants Parliament to authorize the transfer of resources to the regions hit by the strong storms without subjecting it to compliance with the fiscal rules. The measures include an extraordinary credit and the suspension of the monthly payment of its debt obligations, among other incentives. The ALBA TCP member states expressed on Tuesday their solidarity with the people and government of Brazil due to the heavy rains and floods in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The Bolivarian Alliance of the Peoples of Our America People's Trade Treaty deeply regretted in a communique the human and material losses and expressed its condolences. It pointed out that this historic catastrophe surpasses the flood of 1941 and is the fourth such environmental disaster in a year. The text points out that ALBA TCP is closely following the rescue works and supports of all the efforts being made by the Brazilian state, led by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, to provide a rapid response to the emergency and assistance to the affected families. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations denounced Israel's denial to access to Rafah crossing point in Gaza. The multilateral body joins Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, Palestine, Belgium and other governments and organizations denouncing Zionist operation at Kerem Shalom crossing. Israel has completely blocked the entry of humanitarian aid, as denounced earlier by several organizations that claim that Tel Aviv's real intention is to continue starving thousands of Palestinians. With timid protest from its allies in Washington and Paris, the Zionist government seized the border crossing in the midst of an unfinished negotiation process. The Palestinian Ministry of Health informed that more than 50 people died and 96 others were wounded in Gaza during the attacks launched by Israeli forces against that Palestinian region in the last 24 hours. According to the health authority, the Palestinian death toll from Israel's deadly aggression since October 7, 2023 has now surged to 34,789. At least 78,204 others have also been injured in the onslaught against the Gaza Strip. Medical sources on the ground have reported that many victims are still trapped under the rubble and on the roads, as rescuers are still unable to reach them. Meanwhile, Rafah residents expressed their anguish after overnight Israeli attacks on Rafah disrupted their celebrations over a possible ceasefire.
All the Palestinian people were overjoyed after Hamas approved a ceasefire proposal from Egyptian and Qatari mediators. Everyone felt an indescribable joy. People are suffocated and they couldn't believe for a moment that they were going to feel a sense of safety. We were surprised to see that it turned out to be a bloody night. Without joy or anything, they stole our joy. We couldn't be happy for over 2 hours. Our joy didn't last longer than 2 hours. There were surprising Israeli strikes with various goals, using jets and artillery bombings. It was a terrifying night.
For their part, locals are hopeful that a ceasefire could end the suffering of the people of Gaza.
We hope for a ceasefire, even if it is just for a few moments, so that we can save our children. Just to give them a period of rest, some time to rest. For us, for any human being, our greatest ambition in life is to build a house, to have a child, to raise that child, to send that child to school. For us, in one moment, our child is killed, our house is destroyed, our whole world is destroyed, and we lose everything in one moment.
On Tuesday, relatives of Israeli hostages held by Hamas issued an ultimatum to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire agreement already reached by the Palestinian resistance movement. In this regard, hundreds of Israelis rallied and blocked major local highways to warn the Tel Aviv government that they will intensify demonstrations if it does not accept the ceasefire proposal. The mobilizations was called after it was learned that the Zionist government decided to advance militarily on Rafah despite Hamas' acceptance of the latest ceasefire agreement. For its part, Hamas warned that the Israeli deployment in the area, in addition to the humanitarian catastrophe for thousands of displaced Palestinians, also would put an end to any possibility of an agreement. In Germany, the police intervened on pro-Palestinian protests by hundreds of university students. Protesters gathered on campus at Freie Universität Berlin, where students set up tents, carried Palestinian flags, and wore keffiyeh scarves to denounce Israel's occupation of the Gaza Strip and Germany's support. The group was formed by students from various Berlin universities who followed a call to action organized by the Initiative Student Coalition Berlin. The German police broke up the protests by force using pepper spray and detaining activists. These protests in Berlin followed similar actions in support of Palestine at universities in several European countries, such as the United Kingdom, Spain, Switzerland, and Belgium, among others. Russian President Vladimir Putin was sworn in to officially take office as head of state for the next 6 years. During his speech at the inauguration ceremony, President Putin did not hint who his candidate to prime minister might be. According to the Russian legislation, the head of state has until May 20th to propose to the State Duma a name to occupy this position. Putin focused his speech on issues related to his country's ability to succeed in any challenge. He highlighted his nation's ability to overcome current obstacles and his willingness to contribute to the construction of a new world scenario.
We will be open to good relations with countries that see Russia as an efficient and honest partner, that is, with the majority of them. We do not engage in dialogue with Western governments, which try to delay the development of Russia with aggressive policies. They do not cease to pressure, they do not cease to exert pressure. I repeat, dialogues, including on security issues, are possible, but not from the point of view of violence or exclusion, but on an equal level with the partners of the Eurasian integration.
In this context, the President of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, arrived in Russia to participate in the Supreme Council of the Eurasian Economic Union. In this meeting, Cuba would be participating as an observer nation. The Cuban head of state is set to develop a work agenda which includes a reunion with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. Díaz-Canel traveled to the Russian Federation accompanied by Foreign Affairs Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parrilla and Emilio Lozada, head of the International Relations Department of the Cuba's Communist Party. The Cuban president is also scheduled to attend the military parade of May 9th on the occasion of Victory Day, this year celebrating the 79th anniversary of the triumph of the Soviet Union over Nazi Germany in the Great Patriotic War. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, confirmed on Tuesday he has filed a complaint against the U.S. technology giant Apple for the use of minerals associated with human rights violations. In this regard, the head of state announced that the U.S. company based in California obtains supplies of the so-called 3T minerals, which have been smuggled into Rwanda from the Democratic Republic of Congo. In this regard, the Congolese president also denounced that violence and massacres are taking place in the mines where these minerals are obtained. The legal process initiated by Kinshasa demands responsibility and reparations from Apple for the damages caused by the use of these illegally sourced materials. On Tuesday, humanity celebrated World Asthma Day, a chronic disease that affects a high percentage of the world's population, with children being the most vulnerable. The event, organized by the Global Asthma Initiative, takes place on the first Tuesday of May to involve patients in the care and control of the disease, reduce possible risk factors, and teach people what to do when faced with a possible asthma attack or crisis. Asthma causes the airways of the lungs to swell and narrow, causing breathing difficulties such as wheezing, shortness of breath, chest tightness, and coughing. This day aims to raise awareness of asthma and its consequences, promote the study of its association with the environment, reduce morbidity and mortality from this condition, and improve the availability and accessibility to therapies for this pathology. Now we go to the world of sports. On Monday, Barbados initiated an agreement with Jamaica to receive assistance in the preparation of athletes and athletic trainers in order to raise the level of education in the country. In this regard, the Barbados Minister of Sports, Charles Griffith, stated that the project emerges as a result of conversations with his Jamaican counterpart, Olivia Grange, since Kingston, capital of Jamaica, had a similar collaboration with Trinidad and Tobago. He also stated that the idea of the agreement is to promote the exchange of experience in order to better train coaches and thus raise the quality standards in the preparation of athletes. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.